good all the time.
We are Star FM, sounding good all the time. I sound no extra when this voice hits your ears. My name is DJ Eve, the queen of the weekend. For what? The Wonder Woman Chi-Chi. Standing in for V Candy. It is the Morning Galaxy. Your mid-morning cruise into the stars, into the galaxy. Welcome to a segment, Relationship Goes with a Love Coach. And with me in the studio, his name is Pastor Simba, a founder and programs coordinator of Strong Bonds Marriage Africa, and author of a book titled The Marriage Handbook, and a pastor at the Praise City Church, and a proud Man United supporter.
You got it right this time. Thank you.
I had to put a stamp on it because last week I said, you did not introduce me properly because you left out the Munhu part of it. But I'm like, but we're the same team, so I don't get it. How are you doing, Pastor? I'm
good. We are off season, so menu. They need to be reminded every time.
Every now and then, but I listen. But how are you doing?
No, I'm doing good. Fully recovered now.
Ah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That is lovely. So this morning, we're talking about marriage curfew.
Yeah.
What time should a married person come home?
Not to scare our single friends out there. But this is reality, Eve. This is reality. It's happening, and us, we are letting the cat out of the bag.
Okay. Curfew.
Yeah, so when you get married, obviously, there are certain freedoms that you lose. There are certain, can I call them rights? I don't know. But definitely curfews exist in marriage, and they have their own advantages as well that we'll speak about. And because your mama disadvantages are report, but very few disadvantages, if you ask me.
Okay.
But it's important for us to understand why they are important, because the moment you use the word curfew, but it could be for your benefit. And so it's very important for you to, remain tuned in. And let's talk. Let's chat after the show, and let me hear from you. Kuti kwenyu kune mtemo here, kune nguvai here yakatarwa kunzi by 10 munhu anofanira kupinda mumba, by 9 munhu anofanira kupinda mumba, and how is it going as we implement that unwritten rule, or is it written, whatever the case. So it's a very interesting topic. I want to start off by just quoting a scripture. If you read, nothing to know if Nasrutar about you.
Hey.
So we are in the book of Genesis, chapter number 3.
Okay.
The famous couple, Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So in verse number 9, God calls out for Adam. Adam, where are you? That was the big question there. And I'm telling you, this question, even us. I'm telling you, there are people that can actually testify today. Muswe Friday ndakatopinzirwa phone kunzi uri kupi. So kubva patime Adam bvunzo waingobvunzwa kunzi uri kupi, because this is something that is very important, when you are married, for you to know kuti mwako ari kupi, and for iwo kuti uzikane kuti uri papi. It is very important.
Communication.
So that question has always been there. Saka usakwatwa kubvunzwa kunzi uripi. Ausi wakatanga kubvunzwa mvunzo yoyo. Adam akabvunzwa na Eve. Whoever is going to marry DJ Eve.
Oh, don't do that. Don't be like that.
Don't just disappear. You'll be asked that question. and of course, a follow-up to that verse number 9, which is verse 11, says kuti Mwari achibvunza kuti asi wadya muchero yakani, nevoice rapo matavire, asi wadya muchero yakani. Meaning kuti when people go beyond their boundaries, because when you look at Adam, God is asking to rikupi kurati angasiri panzvimbo paifa ungari. So naturally, when people go beyond the boundaries, they then make themselves available to other things that are bad. That's why Mwari akazokumza kubvunza kuti asi wadya muchero uyo yakani, because akatoziva kuti pabreakwa curfew apa, pabreakwa boundary apa, pane zvakaipa zvinogona kunge zvaitika. So it's very important for us to discuss curfews. And by the way, these curfews are to discuss on us. I'm not hitting, or rather, I'm not attacking a specific gender. This applies to all genders. I don't want people to be saying, Pastor, you were speaking to our gender. But my gender is. But
okay.
Tinotomboita times zokuti tinosvika times 3 dzotiri kumba. You know, whether you talk of husbands or wives. So today, my gender SMO. So I don't want one gender to feel we are being attacked. And it, though it's such as a gender, knows abuse of curfews, rakanyanya, kudarika gender, but atitaure both atitaure mazita. So curfews are a big issue in a number of marriages. If a big issue. You know, and in my shows, I try as much as possible to be real. And this is an issue. And if you're single and you're tuned in, it's also important for you to know these things so that you can also manage your expectations as you get into marriage. Because these are things that we must discuss even before getting into marriage.
Okay.
So if you're tuned in and you're single, please sit down with your boyfriend, with a girlfriend, and discuss this question today. What do you believe concerning the curfews? Do you believe what's your belief? And it's very important that we find out all those things, because once married, then these things start happening. You don't want to be told so it's very important for you to find out before you commit, before you make the big jump. Find out na 6 p.m. So it's important to discuss such things. So curfews are very big issues, and that's why you hear statements like the following statements. I'm a grown-up person. Of course, I don't want to use that term that refers to the other gender. But I'm a grown-up person who needs no one to tell me what time to come home. I mean, my statements are
there's actually one here that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I remember asking my husband, where are you? Look at the time. I was hurt.
I was hoping to study gender. Was hoping I'm trouble. Mama gender. But that's very true. These are the statements that you see flying around in marriages, and also statements like, it's now sounding more like I'm in a prison.
Yes.
And it's giving prison. It's giving prison. You know,
why are you behaving like my parent?
Why are you so controlling?
Yes.
And all those things. I mean, if you didn't want that sort of control, you should have stayed unmarried. Truth be said. But not saying we're advocating for people to be put in a prison. But people must understand that the moment you say you're getting married, you are migrating from independence to interdependence. Your lives are now intertwined. So the other person has a right to ask you to nguvai, because your life and their life is now intertwined. So magurarama, a shared life. What we call a shared life. You are now one flesh. So the other party is a valid responsibility. Saka, those are things to look out for. And like I said, if Pakutanga, let's not be scared of my curfews. They're actually good.
Okay.
But at the end, towards the end of this show, I'll show you how you can negotiate, how you can come up with healthy curfews that will enhance your relationship. It's very important that we also go that route. But for now, I want you to know that curfews can actually save lives. A lot of lives were saved or preserved by curfews. I mean, look at during wartime, or even the latest COVID pandemic.
Yes.
I mean, it made curfews a necessity, isn't it? It justified my curfews, because that was going, please, by 6, Munhu garamumba, garamumba shows and all those things, signifying the importance of curfews. Curfews are very important. Had they not implemented those curfews, I'm telling you, the pandemic was going to take more lives. Saka, in as much as we don't like them, we don't enjoy them, because they're not enjoyable, but they are still necessary. And the same goes when you're talking of relationships, marriages. If you leave marriage yako and a relationship yako, isina boundaries. Anything is bound to happen. And definitely that relationship will be fragile, because it's not sitting on any boundary. It's not sitting on any rules. Anything goes. It's more like, some of those marriages that we hear of now are not my open marriages. I'm sure that's a story for another day. There are no boundaries. So it's very important for us to put boundaries in our relationships. And this also helps you to affair-proof your marriage. If there are clear boundaries, unfortunately today we're using the big word curfew. But what we are simply talking about is boundaries. So the other, friendly word that we can use is boundaries. We just need to have boundaries. So these curfews sound like oppression. They sound like evil. They are evil. But I would want to think that they are actually a necessary evil if you want to see them as evil. They also sound like they're unfair. They infringe our rights and limit our freedom. And indeed, your freedom will be limited by these curfews. But it's for your good. It's for your good at the end of it. They are still necessary. I also want to bring you back to what we are experiencing now. Pane chiflu chiri kutenderera chanetsa. Chiflu chiri kurira mazuvano. Ikakubata iwe unopinda magumbezi.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
very
bad.
terrible. Yes.
But just imagine innocent kids, vana vedu, innocent kids that are catching flus from a parent who got it from their affair partner. How unfair is that, guys?
Yeah.
How unfair is that? What is savana kurona mwana ne flu enonyazoti yakabva kupi? Simply because there are certain curfews that were not respected,
because
guys.
you were not at home when you were supposed to be.
and knowing fully good I was with that affair partner, and a girlfriend or boyfriend, ndiakandipa flu, and I'm passing down to my spouse and to my kids.
Yeah.
How unfair is that? Man, ngatinzwiretsitsi vana. Ngatingotangira kungonzwira tsitsi vana vako. Ungotosa mwana wako kuti kana ndikanomubatira flu kunzoko. Ndikaunza flu mumba. We're not even talking about all these other diseases and all that. But we just flu yo. And I'm telling you, there are people that will testify. Kuti this is happening even in their homes now. They've got a flu that they can't explain kuti ava nekupi. And mwarutozviziva ndakaitora kuna ningi. Please ngatimbomira ngatigare mumba vedu. Boundaries are very important. Though they look unfair, but they are for our good. So the question still remains, Andita, kuti should there be, what we are calling merit curfews? But before we address that, let's look at what happens if we don't have merit curfews. We call them merit curfews, and if we don't have such boundaries, if we don't have such curfews, what will be happening in that marriage? Okay. Number one, there's that overwhelming feeling of loneliness on the part of the stay-at-home spouse. Whether baba kana murume, boss tiko ana baba tombosiwa.
My house husbands. I didn't it's always the housewife. There's also house husbands out there.
Kutosiwa umzimai ndawo party ne my friends ake ne maburura ake girls night party and all that is happening now, and imagine the feeling of loneliness. Yet that person as Sarah, what I know for a fact is that in an ideal world, when people are in a relationship, they should consider the needs and the feelings of their spouse or of their person that they are in a relationship with. So imagine are you also considering their feelings? Are you also considering their needs? Or you're just looking at your needs? I have to go out no matter what, no matter who feels what. I don't care, as long as I'm out there with my friends and I can come back anytime that I want. Remember, it's not about us saying, Guti, don't go out. Yes, you can go out. But time. So it's very important for us to consider consider my feelings as spouse wako. Just get into their shoes and also begin to empathize with them. Kuti kana pano Sara ega pana pa indisipo arikufila say arikunzwa say. Because that loneliness can actually trigger many other unwanted emotions like anger. Unozongona munhu achingori angry, achingori atwa in a different mood, because over the years or over the time they are developing those emotions because varingo feel lonely. They know kuti every Friday, every Saturday ndo sarandi ndega pamba, and you don't know what you're creating in them. You end up creating a monster. Shout, what happened to my wife? What happened to my husband?
You used to be so sweet.
Yes.
What happened? It's
because over a period of time, because of that loneliness, certain emotions were developing in them, and before you know it, they're always angry. And it's very important for us to see that if we don't have curfews, if we don't have limits, we end up in that situation. Then number two, too much freedom can actually lead to trouble. Freedom is very controversial because it's like I'm stripping people's freedoms here, but I'm not. I'm just saying, okay, let's live like adults, but at the same time, let's understand our limits. Let's understand boundaries. It is very important. Like I said to you earlier on, Guti, if we live in this marriage, this number boundaries, anything can happen and we'll have problems. I mean, too much freedom can lead to trouble. If you can confirm, Guti,
Too much of a good thing is never good for anything.
yeah, you can confirm with a few good things. A few good things happen after 12 or after midnight. I'm here to hear testimonies zokuti na one usiku wakumana ndakazowana chakati ndakadai na one kana kuti pa midnight I saw this good thing. I'm yet to hear such testimonies. Mostly it's testimonies about accidents. It's testimonies about nezvatunototya varoyi chaivo vanofamba usiku. So nothing good happens. In fact, a few good things happen after 12. So you end up doing stupid things sometimes. After 12, your judgment is impaired and all those things. Saka, you don't want to live a life is cinema limits. That's why we are advocating for these curfews. We're advocating for these boundaries because bad things happen, especially in the early hours of the morning. So, you must, at least have a template that you live with or live by. Then number 3, if we don't have curfews, if you don't have boundaries, communicating with your spouse, especially when my friends are and they're tuned into your conversations, it becomes very uneasy for you. Imagine urine boys, girls, and then your spouse is calling you. How irritating it can be for some people. And you have to, find words to speak to your spouse so that you don't disappoint your boys or your girls. That's how our communication then changes. And before you know it, we are having communication problems. I'll touch on that a little bit later. Then number 4, my late returns at they may also act as triggers, especially if the couple is trying to recover from infidelity. If the infidelity recovery coach, and this is what I know. When you are experiencing or when you're going through that recovery process, you need to be mindful of the triggers. Trigger. So my late returns are not trigger, especially the faithful partner. Yeah, urukupi, yes. Unani, who are you with? What are you doing there? They start imagining things, even though you are not doing anything.
Maybe about one congestion, but
exactly. That. Yes. So it then becomes a trigger, especially if we are trying to recover from infidelity. So Pamupacho, you'd rather, start coming home early than, matkofa 2 hours or ma 1 or 2 hours. Because if you come home at 6, 7, it's really not reduce, the impact of such triggers, or even munandu pesa singachambo zifunge nezvazvo, and you recover quickly from that infidelity. And number 5, obviously, insecurities. When you're out there till 12, till 1 a.m., till 3, or till 11 p.m., the stay-at-home partner develops my insecurities. And then you wonder, why are they insecure? Why do they have all these insecurities? It's because over the time or over the period, they are developing that because they're always thinking, what is happening out there? Then number 6, I spoke about communication challenges, and I want to talk about this again. Have you ever noticed that network inotanga kunetsa? Those are some of the reasons you get. I could not update you. Kwanga kusina networking. Ndopantangira ma communication challenges in you, pap. For some reason, when people are having fun out there, suddenly phone network becomes a problem. And battery, your phone battery goes flat. Ameno pamwe pesa pa battery ngachengeta moto, but wango out there takunzwa ma story kuti battery razopera moto. Kana to have run out of data. Things like that. So there are so many excuses that people come up with, and before you know it, the trust bank is actually depleting. What we call the trust bank is, you being trustworthy. Because you can't just demand that someone trusts you, contrary to, someone who's trustworthy. So you need to make sure that you make deposits into your trust bank so that you can be trusted, you can be trustworthy. But if you keep on coming up with excuses excuse after another, then, I mean, who's going to trust you? Nasi Friday, and nasi wati, battery ranga flat. Next Friday, kwangu sina data kwandanga ndiri. The other Friday, phone nandasiya kumota, nandasiya ripa charger. You're making it difficult for your spouse to believe you. So communication becomes an issue, and also trust becomes an issue. So what then must you do? You must negotiate the boundaries. It is very important that we negotiate the boundaries. Kuti shamari, inini ndoda kudzoka kumbana 10. Then umoti aiwa, come home early. Boss ndine vana nda kusavana homework nda kuti ndibatsirewo. Umaruti come home early, be home by 8. I want to be home by 10. Let's learn the art of negotiating. You can't go into this process with a winner take all mentality. It's either my way or no way. We just have to, to find the middle ground. It is very important that we sit and negotiate. But before we do that, let's also understand why these late nights are happening. Why is my partner coming home late? It is very important. Number one, some are genuinely, workaholics. They're genuine workaholics. They're at the office.
And they're stuck at work. Yes.
Yeah, so you need to understand that. Sit down with them, find out why they're always late before giving them rules and curfews. Then number two, there's just, the avoidance. Yongoti mnasuda kuyakumba. Anda kuzoyakumba kana ma problems anga arara. It's a clear sign that we actually have conflicts that we are here to resolve. So we must resolve such conflict if it's there. Then number three, there's just addictions. Addiction. And let's sit down and let's craft a way of dealing with that addiction. Because addictions do affect relationships. I think that's a story for another day where we want to talk about, addictions, several different addictions that affect our relationships and how they affect our relationships and how we can recover from such addictions. It's very important. Then number four, wrong company, Cheche. Do you know when some people are in the midst of, their boys or their girls, they stop making decisions, that concern evil. But I want to decide my friends avo. And this is happening, unfortunately. A grown-up man, a grown-up woman, letting other people decide. Kuti unoenda kumba nguvai, mbomira kwenda kumba. Yes. You need to make your own decisions. Be your own man, be your own woman. And there's also number 5, stress. Andika. Ukaona mna chinonoka kuuya, pampacho is stress. So, hadi kushika kumba kukuti ushika kumba watanga kudzira futi mwe stress. So let's learn what I always talk about, stress reducing conversations. So that munhu anoenjoya kuya kumba. Pampacho munhu anotoavoida kuya kumba because ari kuchika kuti umanya dzacho ndosvika unopinda mune court ndakuwedzerwa futi stress. So those are things that we look at. We need to look at the cause. Pamwe pacho is simply not prioritizing your primary family, your spouse and your kids. So these are some of the things that are happening. It is very important for us to understand the reason first before we can deal with this problem and put curfews in place. But the biggest tool is let's negotiate, let's agree. And if we agree with 9, God's the 9 chaids, no excuses. God's the 9, kana 9 Africa, make sure you're home. But it's about negotiating. It's very important. And one big word that I'm going to leave with you is accountability. You can't live a life usina munhu are accountable to. I'm not saying come and be accountable to me as a pastor, but I'm saying be at least be accountable to your wife or to your husband. Ausi upenzi, ausi kupusa, kuvane munhu anokudza kuti be home by 8. It's actually wisdom when you have such people that you're accountable to. Because no protect izvozvo. But if you just live anyhow and you believe no one speaks to you or no one cautions you, then you are living dangerously. That's my parting shot.
Oh, wow. Very powerful there. Thank you so much, Pastor Simba. So I'm sure there are people who want to get in the group. I know we've got a group. How do they go about that?
Okay, please send me a message. Just send the word notes, because I want to send you my notes from today's presentation. So just send me that, and then I'll also forward you several links. Then you can join an appropriate group. I have singles, I have marrieds, and I'm teaching singles every Saturday online, and also marrieds every Monday online. So I would want to communicate with you, and obviously we also offer counseling services as well.
Right, Pastor Simba, thank you so much for joining me this morning. So you can catch Pastor Simba next week.
Did I give out my number?
No, you did
Oh,
not.
0773 000 0773 000.
I was going to say, what did Pastor Glory say? What did she say?
Edge is catching up with me.
So you can catch him next week around the same time right here on Star FM on the Morning Galaxy. We are Star FM, sounding good all the time. It's midday. It's time for the news.